Uh, welcome to Storytime with Quefish. It's very serious. Um, I'm actually going to try to do a drunk reading um, in a little bit. It's probably going to be porn um, because I am a 12-year-old boy and I can't get through speaking out loud about sexual things without being drunk, apparently. So, um, so I'm going to do that. I might even read one of my own. Maybe. Anyway, drinking tonight is traditional Korean rice wine. And I will put the link somewhere. Um, 13% by volume. Uh, Probably going to go through the whole thing before I get started, but you never can tell. So, uh, almost smells like beer that was buried in the dirt. It's not bad. This one has ginseng, which is probably where the whole dirt feel is coming from. Um, Ginseng always kind of has that earthy dirt kind of feel, taste to me. So anyway, I'm gonna drink this, and I'll be back with some porn stories. Ugh, this is not as as tasty as it started out. However, my tongue's going a little bit numb. Not quite yet, though. Wait. Transition. Oh, God. Okay. So it's been maybe a half hour, 30 minutes. It's not good. It's really not. I don't know if it's because I should have been doing something else with it. Still drinking it, but in a different way. But first couple of sips weren't bad. But now that I'm getting down to the bottom, I'm like, why the fuck am I doing this? Excuse me. My goodness. Where are my manners? I'm still gonna put the link to this nightmare drink. um, Down there, you'll find it. Just in case, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna read one of my more ridiculous, um, cornier stories. Um, anyway, this one is bedroom magic. This was I'm like months and months behind on the whole Kinktober thing, mainly because when I found Kinktober, it was like the next day or something ridiculous like that. And but I when I saw all the prompts, I had fantastic ideas in my head, and I was like, holy shit, I could do something with that. And it's just taken so long to write them. And I mean, part of it is just because of how long some of them ended up being. I was hoping to keep them like under 1,000. That did not work. Um, Part of it is because I've had effortless intimacy to update, and part of it is just because, for lack of a better term, somewhere at the end of November and mid October, no, end of September, and then into mid October, my life kind of went to shit. A whole lot of nightmare things kind of happened, and so I fell even farther behind. So, told you all that because I like making excuses. So, so anyway, this one is Bedroom Magic. You can't see it, but it's there. This is the 18th Ineffable Kinktober 2019 prompt. And the prompt was magic. And this is one that I didn't have really any idea what to do because they're kind of made of magic. And so like anything could be construed as magic for them. And it happened to be that I was watching it and I was reminded of the fact that he actually does stupid magic. And I was like, oh, okay, well, we have to start there then because otherwise it's cheating. So, okay. So here is my Kinktober porn offering for magic. Summary. Aziraphale needs to practice his magic act. Crowley gets bored. Different magic ensues. Monday evening. Crowley sat awkwardly in the back room of the bookshop, the begrudging audience to Aziraphale's rehearsals. He knew the moment Aziraphale had gotten the blinding sparkle in his eye about entertaining at Warlock's birthday party, it would be a disaster that he'd be unable to avoid. He had dragged Crowley back to the bookshop and pulled out a trunk that hadn't seen the light of day for a century, and while unpacking it, told stories of every object that came out. Crowley was embarrassed for the angel, who obviously didn't have sense enough to be embarrassed himself. Crowley, are you even watching? How am I supposed to get proper practice without feedback? He made a general gesture in Crowley's direction, dislodging and letting fly a deck of cards from his sleeve. Drat, just a moment, let me just... The demon allowed him 9 seconds on the floor before snapping them back into Aziraphale's sleeve himself. Look, if you're gonna hold me hostage and torture me, at least get me a drink first. Aziraphale sighed at Crowley's impatience and headed to a cabinet that held a fine scotch that Crowley was partial to. Here, you ungrateful fiend. Now will you pay attention? I don't have much time. The party is Wednesday afternoon. That is less than 48 hours, and I know you are planning to sleep for some of those. He wasn't wrong. Crowley liked to sleep, but he wasn't sure how well that would go, considering how stressed he felt already. He was tense from his hair to his feet, and watching the angel flounder in front of him wasn't helping. He poured and drank, and poured again before waiting for the fiasco to continue. Why not do a sword swallow? That's a crowd pleaser. Right, for a circus act, not a magic act. Are you certain you won't do the actual sword trick? It is a crowd pleaser. Let you put me in a box and poke me with swords? No chance. My luck, you'd accidentally bless the blade, and then you'll be out someone to drink with as the world comes to an end. Aziraphale sighed, admitting the possibility of accidentally wishing his act to go well, only to find that the tools became dangerous to the demon. You bring a valid point. My apologies, of course. He turned back to the makeshift stage and got in place. He took a breath and put on his performance face, almost making Crowley smile with how pure and joyful it was. The show began again. Crowley stopped him within minutes. No, 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 no. Angel, these kids aren't going to go for the coin and the ear gag. They're 11, and this isn't the 1890s. They want showmanship, effects, excitement, comedy. Comedy during a magic act. Those are two completely separate schools of entertainment, Crowley. You never saw The Amazing Jonathan, or you wouldn't be saying that. Crowley took a sip. Yes, comedy. Physical comedy is best. I'm not entirely sure. Crowley! Aziraphale's trousers had mysteriously just fallen down, causing the demon to truckle into his glass. What'd I do? Nice pants, by the way. Glad you go with something more modern underneath, at least. Crowley covered his grin, taking another sip as Aziraphale righted his trousers. See, now you do stuff like that in between tricks, you may not get booed off the stage. Aziraphale scoffed. I'm not going to drop my trousers in front of children, Crowley. It would be unconscionable, and I suspect, even as an entertainer, suspicious enough to be illegal. Crowley had to concede that point. Miracle ability or no, being arrested, or any kind of police involvement at all, wouldn't exactly help their cause. He took another sip as Aziraphale's trousers fell again. Stop that! Stop what? You know very well what. Aziraphale fought with his trousers, which seemed rather determined to stay down this time. Look, if you wanted me to get a better look at your pants, you could have just asked. The demon was snickering by now, watching his mayhem at work. I go for that style myself. Nice and snug. I go for black or red, though. But that dark blue looks nice on you. Yes, well, I'm hardly dressing in the morning hoping to impress you, Crowley. The angel finally gave up and snapped his trousers to rights. He smoothed down his black costume jacket, pulling it taut at the bottom. Although, I do appreciate your compliment. Now, could we please get back to the matter at hand? I already don't understand why you don't just do proper magic to make your show tolerable, let alone why you weren't taking my suggestions to make it funny. He poured himself another glass, adding another and holding it out for Aziraphale, who came around and accepted it before dropping onto the sofa next to the demon. Feels like cheating somehow. Not to mention, the use of multiple miracles close to the Antichrist would surely draw attention that we'd prefer not to have. He started sipping, the demon nodding. All right, you've got a point there. That means I can't help either. Crowley finished his drink and groaned. All right, finish your drink, get up there, get to practicing. But you're going to owe me one, Angel. Tuesday, midday. I'm telling you, just stop trying to put the bird there. It will die. Just skip that bit. But it's a classic. It'll be a classic feathered funeral if you keep squeezing it into your sleeve. Aziraphale sighed and resigned to just do it when Crowley wasn't looking and prove him wrong at the party on Wednesday. Fine. What about the rest of it? Crowley pinched the bridge of his nose. The kids are going to hate it. Really. I'm sorry. Can I take a nap now? No, you can't take a nap now. I need more rehearsal time. Okay, how about this? I nap, you practice for a bit, then come wake me for your final dress rehearsal. The demon stood up and started heading for the stairs. Where are you going? Aziraphale called out to the demon, who was disappearing up the staircase. Upstairs to the bedroom. The angel began to argue that he didn't have one, and in fact didn't even have a bed, when he heard a distinct snap. You do now. Oh, and I'm a heavy sleeper and a grumpy waker. Fair warning. Aziraphale grumbled and began rehearsing again. Aziraphale didn't realize how late it had gotten until he noticed that the main area in the bookshop was dropping into shadow. He sighed and set up the stage to start from the beginning of his act and headed to his new bedroom to wake Crowley. The angel was expecting Crowley had created something dramatic and severe. He had anticipated dark colors, but not how comfortable the bed looked. He was also not expecting Crowley to be in silky pajamas. They looked sinfully soft and comfortable. He enjoyed a long look at the demon's form and mentally added demonic erection to the list of unexpected things in the room. Well, partial erection, he amended. Crowley, I believe I'm ready. Aziraphale spoke timidly from the doorway, not knowing how serious the demon was about being a light sleeper or a grumpy waker. He had no interest in spooking him and finding himself on the wrong side of pillow projectiles. He raised his voice a bit. Crowley, time to wake up. The demon didn't even snort in his sleep, indicating something disturbing him. Crowley, rise and shine. No, that won't work. Aziraphale questioned whether he should try cold water or throwing something at him. He got as loud as he felt comfortable with, without genuinely shouting. Crowley! It's getting late! Wake up! The only indication there was a living creature on the bed was that the silk-covered groin twitched. The angel stepped closer to the bed. Time to wake up! I have a nice wine downstairs for you. The demon's head rolled to face him, but there was no other movement. He tentatively reached out and shook Crowley's shoulder. This resulted in another trouser twitch, what almost sounded like a purr, and a small shimmy closer, leaning into Aziraphale's hand. Well, that's progress at least. Sorry, I got a cough. Well, that's progress at least. Aziraphale spent the next 10 minutes begging and cajoling the demon to wake up, trying all manner of bribery. He received interesting sounds, what amounted to shoulder-palm cuddling, and a steady increase from partial erection to distractingly firm erection. Crowley, I must insist you get up immediately, or I shall have to resort to extreme measures. One yellow eye cracked open and looked around a bit. Crowley's hand reached into his trousers, obviously gripping himself. I seem to be up already, but you're welcome to use extreme measures anyway. Aziraphale gaped at him, watching a slow smirk cross the demon's lips. I beg your pardon. No need to beg, Angel, I'm offering. Unless you prefer I drive. That'll be worth waking up for. A little magic act of my own. The smirk grew wider, and his eye closed again after getting his fill of the deep blush across Aziraphale's cheeks. He was reasonably certain that the angel's reply was going to be to storm out of the room, which was fine with Crowley. More sleep could be had. Most people ask for coffee, you know, Aziraphale muttered before taking another long look at the demon, lingering over the still-covered erection. It would be nice to get his mind off current events for a while. Well, the timing is a bit inconvenient, but I accept. Crowley's eyes snapped open and his jaw dropped, fully awake now. He blinked and slowly looked at Aziraphale out of the corner of his eye. When he saw that the angel had already begun getting undressed, his head followed suit, turning to watch in disbelief. Jacket and waistcoat were smartly placed on a newly existent hangers and placed in a similarly new wardrobe. Shoes and socks and garters were lined up at the bottom. Trousers came off next, followed by his shirt, and hung next to the other clothing. As the undershirt came off, Crowley unabashedly stared at Aziraphale's groin, which had a very interested erection hiding behind the boxer briefs he had joked about earlier. His mouth went dry as the pants came off, and the angel stood up again, naked, erect, and unashamed. Will you be getting undressed as well? Oh. The angel barely had time to ask before the demon's pajamas had been snapped off to who knows where, and he got his first eyeful of all of the demon's charms, which were rather charming indeed. Crowley was still gripping himself, and other than his head, hadn't moved a muscle save for the snap. He looked quite frozen. Aziraphale opened a drawer that suddenly appeared in the wardrobe and removed the jar of lubricant he expected would be inside. He stepped closer to the bed again. I am quite out of practice, my dear. Well, with a partner anyway. Do you have a preferred position? Crowley's jaw snapped shut as he looked up at the angel. Yep, yeah, let me just. He sat up and swung his legs over the bed. He reached out his hands, stopping just short of touching Aziraphale's hips. You're sure, yeah? I mean, is there anything you don't want? I don't want to keep stopping and ask permission. You can say no later, but I'm not breaking it all down into bite-sized pieces and saying please every 30 seconds, all right? Crowley stepped into Aziraphale's hands and felt his fingers grip him firmly. He ran his hands through the demon's short hair, closing into a loose fist, tipping his head back, and heard a sound escape his nose. I'm delighted to hear you say that. No, nothing is off the table, provided you weren't thinking of anything torturous or physically damaging. Is there anything I should worry about? Crowley shook his head, eyes sliding shut as he caused his hair to be pulled. Excellent. Crowley was unprepared for Aziraphale's lips to be on his, and his eyes snapped open again before sliding shut and kissing back. His hands flexed, squeezing and releasing Aziraphale's hips. He spoke against the angel's lips. I'd have woken up much earlier if I'd known this was on offer. Aziraphale huffed a small laugh. I'd not have let you go to sleep in the first place. He went to his knees, still lightly gripping Crowley's hair, forcing him to bend to continue kissing him. Crowley's hands slid up the angel's back over his shoulders and followed his arms down to his wrists, which he gripped firmly. He pulled back just far enough to look in Aziraphale's eyes. The angel's pupils dilated as he shook his head to Crowley's whispered, Mind if I drive? The demon pulled the hands from his hair and placed them on the bed beside his thighs. He gave a gentle press, implying to keep them there as he ran one of his own hands to grip the back of Aziraphale's neck, and the other to cup his cheek. Good. The demon came forward, kissing him before parting his lips and teasing his tongue into Aziraphale's mouth. He traced teeth, tickled the sensitive bits behind the front teeth, pressed and slid along the angel's tongue, feeling the small sounds coming from his throat. His fingers threaded up into soft curls and pulled, his head falling back, giving Crowley access to give a slow lick along his jawline. Will you lick me, Angel? Put your mouth on my cock? Aziraphale let out a small whimper. Oh, I hope that's a yes. Make some magic for me. Aziraphale nodded and allowed Crowley to lead him down his body. He kissed and licked the demon's skin as he was brought lower, and Crowley let him linger on his nipples before pulling him down again. Aziraphale had just brought his tongue out, finally reaching and licking Crowley's tip when he was pulled away to the side to lavish attention on the crease of his hip. He let out a whine and tried to pull back to Crowley's center, but he was held fast and led to the demon's inner thigh. Crowley let out a breathy chuckle. Oh, you'll get that soon enough, Angel, don't worry. Isn't patience one of yours? I think you'll find that I'm personally prone to indulgence. He sank his teeth into the demon's thigh and smirked at Crowley's growl of appreciation. Well, don't let me keep you from sinning, Angel. Glut to your heart's content. The demon spread his legs wider and leaned back on his hands, looking down at the angel on his knees. Am I allowed to touch now, Crowley? He wiggled his fingers, which hadn't moved from where Crowley had put them. Sure, why not? Wonderful. Crowley yelped in surprise as Aziraphale gripped his hips and pulled him to the edge of the bed, then pushed his thighs wide and back. The angel dragged his tongue from the tip of Crowley's cock down the underside and followed the seam of his testicles until he reached his entrance. He laved at the skin, drawing circles around as Crowley swore and panted. Aziraphale flattened his tongue, taking a wide, licking trail back up to Crowley's cock before taking him into his mouth, sliding down until he reached the back of his throat, but before he would gag. He looked up and met Crowley's wide eyes as he began working his mouth up and down his shaft. I thought you said you weren't doing the sword-swallowing trick. Aziraphale popped off long enough to retort, "Thought you said it was a crowd pleaser." Crowley groaned his agreement and let his head drop back and closed his eyes. He was not expecting Aziraphale to be this good. For all he'd thought about it, fantasy was a pale comparison. He'd never really considered that this would happen at all, so it was really a double bonus. Aziraphale lifted off his cock and repeated the lick down between his buttocks, lingering again before repeating the cycle. "Angel, I'm going to come all over the place, or discorporate if you do that much longer." "Well, we can't have that. You mentioned you have a magic act. I'd hate to miss it." Aziraphale smirked as Crowley looked at him agog. "Are you sure you're Aziraphale, guardian of the Eastern Gate, sword donator, the angel who turned fretting into an art form?" Aziraphale pursed his lips as he moved onto the bed. "Who else would I be? For all the people I'm sure you've told to kiss your arse, I certainly doubt anyone else would have taken you up on it, let alone been such an overachiever as I have been." "That's for damn sure." Crowley rolled to his side and climbed onto Aziraphale, straddling his middle. He leaned down and kissed him passionately. He moved down his throat and over his chest, letting the pale blonde curls tickle his lips as he kissed and nibbled his way from one nibble to the other, relishing the hitches in the angel's breath and the soft sounds coming out of him. He came down to the angel's cock and grinned up at him. "Little sword swallowing trick of my own." The demon swallowed down until he was nudging his nose along the angel's pubic bone and hummed. "Oh, good Lord." Aziraphale sighed as his eyes crossed a bit and rolled shut, his only care being the focal point of where the demon was treating him like an iced lolly. He gave a twitch as Crowley repeated his own trick, licking down the shaft until he was tonguing around his entrance. He squirmed as the demon's long tongue worked into him. "I should have considered your serpent's tongue long before this." Crowley reached for the pot of slick and dipped his fingers in, and moving his mouth back up to swallow the angel's shaft again, also began teasing him open. He was tortuously slow and thorough, following the angel's sounds. He reached and gave a gentle rub to his prostate and heard the angel's deep groan, tasted his cock give a slip of precum. He slid his fingers in and swizzled his tongue around Aziraphale's cock as he leaned back on his heels. "Get on your knees for me, Angel?" Aziraphale opened his eyes, taking a moment to focus on Crowley, who pinned him with a look that gave him goosebumps and made him feel like he had already been mounted. He started to move off of Crowley's fingers. "I'll stay where I am, thanks. Be creative, Angel." He leaned forward and darted his tongue out, licking across Aziraphale's lips. "Wiggle and squirm for me. Let me see you want it." Aziraphale whined, another large drop of precum escaping under the demon's words. A long finger on Crowley's free hand swiped it up and licked it with a wink. "Waste not." If asked later, he wouldn't be able to explain how he did it, but he got to his knees, stopping every few seconds to roll his hips onto Crowley's fingers if he moved too far away. Crowley leaned down, covering Aziraphale's cheeks in kisses and bites. "Oh, Angel, the view I have. I think I know what you feel like when the dessert cart stops at our table." He draped himself over his back, giving a teasing lick to the shell of his ear. He whispered, "Ready for my disappearing act?" The fact that I have kudos at all on this is a miracle. He gave his fingers a twist as he slowly pulled them out, and gave a groan as he slid his cock in, stopping about halfway. Gripping Aziraphale's hips, he gave a slow swivel of his own hips, his head dropping on his shoulders. The angel's high-pitched whines and low groans as Crowley moved were music, and the demon wanted to dance to it. I fucking wrote that. Oh my god. That's embarrassing. He rolled his hips until he was completely sheathed, his pelvis kissing ass cheeks. Arse cheeks? I don't know. Can I say that? Because when I write it, I just hear it in an accent, but I don't have an accent. He took hold of Aziraphale's shoulder as he began to drive into his body, rocking into the angel. The demon coveted every sound he pushed out of the angel's mouth, his favorite being his own name, broken by panting and praise for more. Aziraphale reached back and dug his fingers into Crowley's hip, pulling himself back as Crowley thrust forward. He felt small drips on the small of his back and keened, realizing that Crowley was actually sweating with his exertion. He let out an overwhelmed sob as he pushed back harder and dropped his shoulders to the bed so he could stroke himself and not loosen his grip on the demon. Crowley's hips snapped, driven harder by the sweet pain points that were angelic nails biting into his flesh. He murmured sweet and dirty encouragement to the beautiful creature under him, inciting him to his orgasm. The angel let out a low wail and jerked out of rhythm as he came, chanting Crowley's name in a mumble. The demon slowed himself, helping Aziraphale ride it out before bearing down and chasing his own climax. He pushed forward with a quick and deep barrage, drowning in the sensations, seeing the angel's sensual form still bucking back onto him, tasting the fine sheen of sweat as he licked along his spine. He came with a growl that tapered into a hiss, floating in the words and sounds the angel was still singing to him. Crowley covered Aziraphale's back, tightly embracing him as they rolled to the side, curling to fit snug around him. The two lay quietly, catching their breath, each lost in their own thoughts of how much time they had wasted not doing this. Crowley had a stockpile of fantasies about the angel which were now completely useless, knowing that they did not hold a candle to the reality. He was trying to figure out how to ask for more without begging, when Aziraphale took a deep breath and started to speak. Crowley, I know that a magician never reveals their secrets, and rarely accepts an encore, but I'd be utterly overjoyed to receive an invitation to another of your remarkable performances. Perhaps study your techniques to suss out your tricks? Angel, you've got a never-expiring ticket to as many shows as you want. Just give me a little more setup time next time. I'll pull out all the stops. I'll hunt down a special set of chains I'd love to see you try to escape. Aziraphale shivered, already becoming aroused again at the mere thought. He gave a heavy breath, laden with promise. I don't suppose you'd like to go shopping tonight? The shop on the corner is open until midnight, if you're interested. The demon hummed into the angel's neck as he rolled him onto his back and kissed him, giving his lip a bite and pull and then soothing it with a smooth lick. He took Aziraphale's wrists and crossed them over his head and then pulled his legs open by kneeling between his thighs. He let go of the angel's wrist and smirked before he slid off the bed. Don't move. I'll be back before you can say abracadabra. Holy. Oh my God. That was a lot of ridiculous, terrible lines. Oh my goodness. Thank you to everyone who actually liked that. Because on one hand, obviously, I'm happy with everything that I write, and I enjoy writing, and I like knowing that other people like my writing. But God, that one was so cheesy. It was cheese. It was pure cheese. It was macaroni and cheese from beginning to end. disappearing act. Oh my god. Um, that's funny. So, anyway, this was drunk story time with Quefish. Um, I could possibly have been, I could have been more drunk. Um, not on this though. I think next time I do drunk story time, um, it's gonna have to be with something that I can like keep drinking while I'm reading or something. This it was good. It wasn't great. It was okay. It wasn't bad. But it wasn't good. I probably drank it wrong. I always hear that sake, which is rice wine, right, should be warm, but I can't drink warm alcohol. Well, no, I can drink room temperature alcohol, but I can't drink warm alcohol. It just tastes. Anyway, thank you for joining me for drunk time story with Quefish. Until next time.